my favorite player to watch, and I think he's the best player in the world.
I think it's the mental fight.
Missed a beat. I think everybody knew he was going to.
So that was Caitlin Clark speaking about Jokic immediately when she was asked about him during the game. Now, this was Jokic actually responding back to Caitlin Clark last night. Let's listen.
I saw that Caitlin Clark said earlier that you're her favorite player to watch in the NBA. I'm just curious if, like, what your familiarity is with her, if you've kind of kept up with her.
We had the same agent. That's why she said it.
Nikola Jokic is generating buzz after responding to comments made by Caitlin Clark, who called him the best player in the world during her second appearance as an analyst on NBC Sports. The game featured OKC hosting the Knicks, and Clark was asked about Jokic during the broadcast. Her answer turned heads quickly. Clark did not hesitate. She pointed out that averaging a triple-double over a full season is something almost no player has ever managed, and doing it in back-to-back years puts Jokic in a category of his own. She called him her favorite player to watch in the NBA and flat out said he is the best player on the planet.
We had the same agent. That's why she said it.
Going back to that 40 points.
So that was Jokic actually saying him and Caitlin Clark has the same ages, jokingly about it, man. And many Caitlin Clark fans definitely feel a way about this, man. It says Jokic isn't buying it from Caitlin Clark. We have the same agent. That's why she said it.
Jokic's reaction came shortly after, and it landed very differently than expected. When asked during a post-game session whether he was familiar with Clark and had followed her career, he deadpanned that they share the same agent, implying that is the only reason she said it. The room laughed. Jokic moved on without another word. Social media ran with it immediately. Some took the comment as Jokic being genuinely skeptical of the compliment.
Now, let's check out some of these comments. Somebody said, LOL, CC do be capping a whole lot. Wow. That's why you need to chill. Hey, he is about it. Somebody else said, he just being modest. He has a great sense of humor. Joker is a riot. They really need to meet. He's playing. I like players who are self-aware and a good joker. So he's definitely living up to his joker.
Others pushed back, arguing he was simply being self-deprecating in the way he typically is. The general consensus leaned toward the latter, that the remark was vintage Jokic humor rather than any real dismissal of Clark. Also making rounds online was a moment from the same NBC broadcast featuring Clark and Reggie Miller sharing the desk again. Their dynamic was noticeably warm, with Miller making a pointed joke about not repeating the Peyton Pritchard situation that created friction during their last on-air pairing. The moment got a strong reaction. Maria Taylor, speaking ahead of the game, was asked how Clark performed and whether any preparation had been given to her.
To his joker persona, you feel me? Reggie Miller said, y'all not getting between him and Caitlin Clark bond. Oh, I didn't see this. Let's watch this. So last time Caitlin Clark was on NBC, so it looked like she has got reunited with Reggie Miller. And he probably put her to the side, like, look, I'm sorry, Caitlin. I didn't mean any harm, but I said, what I said.
It's great to have Caitlin back. I didn't bring up Peyton Pritchard's name, which happened last time.
Taylor's assessment was straightforward. Clark knows basketball deeply, speaks about it naturally, and needed no hand-holding. Taylor described the debut as that of a natural, noting Clark is already confirmed to return for the OKC Thunder game on March 29th. Taylor was also asked what she would prioritize as commissioner of the WNBA. Her answer centered on investment and partnerships, finding the right institutional backing to ensure players receive appropriate financial support and that the league continues to grow its media footprint. She tied that directly to broadcast commitments, arguing that sustained coverage is what drives revenue, and revenue is what ultimately serves the players. Away from the desk, photos and clips from the event showed Clark signing autographs for fans before tip-off, with her partner Connor visible nearby.
Last time with Reg, but Caitlin and Reg just had that whole Indiana. We're both great.
You're not going to break our bond, people.
Right, exactly.
Fever, Pacers, we're bonded together.
It's great to have Caitlin back. I didn't bring up Peyton Pritchard's name, which happened.
Now, that was so freaking funny, man. Now, Maria Taylor spoke after the game about Caitlin Clark, and she had some things to say.
To Caitlin Clark on the pregame.
Security around Clark was noticeable heavy enough to reflect the level of public attention that follows her wherever she goes. Clark also addressed the Indiana Fever's outlook heading into the upcoming season. She stated the team's top priority is bringing Kelsey Mitchell back, describing her as the kind of player who makes everything around her easier. Clark expressed confidence the Fever are built to compete at the highest level and framed them as genuine title contenders, adding that the pressure that comes with those expectations is exactly what drives the group. The 2026 WNBA season is expected to tip off in April, ending what has been a prolonged offseason. The things are right back to where they were heading into the 2024 Indiana Fever preseason.
It's a Caitlin Clark on a pregame. How did she do, and did you give her any pointers in preparation for that pregame show?
I think Caitlin was more than prepared, and she's a superstar, so she did amazing. Super fluid, she knows the game inside and out, and she knows how to talk the game. So I would say that she, first time out, superstar, she's a natural, and I can't wait for her to come back. She'll be back on our show March 29th for OKC Thunder game. I'll be excited to be covering it on NBC. We have the WNBA back, so I am looking forward to the season starting on time. I'm claiming.
Before a single game has even been played, before the preseason has officially begun, racism allegations against Caitlin Clark supporters have already resurfaced. Nobody could write this stuff. Well, somebody apparently can, but it is not Clark fans doing it. There is a South Carolina Gamecocks guard named Raven Johnson. For anyone unfamiliar with who that is completely understandable.
I'm claiming it with my whole heart.
Lastly, for me, if you were commissioner, what is one thing that you would want to see this league go to, and what would you want for the players to have in order for there to be a balance and continued growth?
I think the biggest thing for continued growth is a continued investment. I mean, continuing to find the partners that can make sure they're giving the adequate money to the league, and that supports the players ultimately. So my biggest thing is finding the best and biggest partnerships that fully believe in the league.
This is another women's college basketball player that the average sports viewer would not be able to identify in a police lineup under any circumstances whatsoever. Not a chance. And yet, here comes the move: drag Caitlin Clark and her following into the conversation, generate attention, pull a particular crowd onto your side, accuse Clark's fan base of racism. That is the lowest, most predictable card in the deck.
Biggest thing is finding the best and biggest partnerships that fully believe in the league. And I know as a broadcast partner, that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that these women are covered in the way that they should be, so the whole world knows how spectacular and awesome they are. And that means all of the sales dollars will continue to flow in, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the thing that supports all of the needs of these young ladies on the court.
So that was Maria Taylor speaking to Nick Hamilton before the game, before Caitlin Clark got started. Now, there's a lot of pictures coming up online showing us exactly what Caitlin.
The victimhood playbook running at full speed. The headline floating around reads, South Carolina star admits Caitlin Clark Iowa moment nearly made her quit. First point, if a moment that exists on video causes someone to consider walking away from organized sports and a potential professional career, that profession might not be the right fit. That is not a harsh statement, that is just reality. On the I Am Athlete podcast, the situation in question was brought back up.
By the name of Raven Johnson. She's a guard, and if you don't know who that is, I forgive you. Understandable. Once again, another player in women's college basketball that you would not be able to pick out of a lineup if your life depended on it. If somebody had a gun and said, pick this person out of a lineup, you'd be a dead sumbitch. All right? I'm just keeping it.
In 2023, Raven Johnson went viral when Caitlin Clark waved her off at the three-point line during a game. The clip shows Clark leaving Johnson completely open, not even bothering to guard her, essentially daring her to shoot. Johnson's account of the aftermath describes being harassed, bullied, and hit with racial slurs online, being called a monkey, and worse, to the point where she considered quitting basketball entirely. She described retreating inward, leaning on faith, leaning on teammates, and ultimately using that pain as fuel to come back the following year undefeated and beat Iowa. Here is the part that does not add up.
Bitch. All right? I'm just keeping it. I'm keeping it 100% factual. Oh, but let me call in Caitlin Clark and her fan base out of the bullpen so I can get some shine, so I can get a group of folks on my side. Oh, and you know, on social media, they start coming out of the woodwork. Let me accuse Caitlin Clark fans of being racist. It's the lowest.
Why would Caitlin Clark supporters pile onto Raven Johnson over a defensive choice Clark made? Iowa fans had no reason to target Johnson from that game. Iowa lost that game. Clark dropped 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and knocked down 5 three-pointers, and the Hawkeyes still fell. Johnson, meanwhile, finished with 3 points on 1 of 11 shooting and 0 of 4 from beyond the arc.
Caitlin Clark fans of being racist. It's the lowest of lowest hanging fruit in existence. They're playing that same old fiddle. God, I've never seen. I mean, the victimhood is out of control, folks. Guys, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Let's get to this. South Carolina star admits Caitlin Clark Iowa moment that nearly made.
That is why she got waved off. Clark read the scouting report in real time and determined Johnson was not a shooting threat. She was right. If anyone was sending messages online after that game, logic points far more towards South Carolina fans frustrated with the loss than Iowa supporters. The timing of bringing this up is worth examining.
That nearly made her quit. Number one, and I think she's coming out in the draft. Number one, if this situation, and there's video, makes you want to quit organized sports and what's going to be a professional career, maybe this ain't the right choice of jobs for you. I'm keeping it real here, folks. I mean, seriously.
Johnson is entering the WNBA draft. Different mock boards have her landing with the Indiana Fever. Before stepping into that environment, one already charged with racial tension surrounding Clark, this story surfaces. There is a portion of the WNBA fanbase that will immediately embrace this narrative and rally around it. That audience exists, and it is vocal.
Seriously. Over on the I Am Athlete podcast, in 2023, Raven Johnson went viral for being waved off by Caitlin Clark at the three-point line. We'll get to why she was waved off. Let's listen to this nonsense.
And then another adversity would probably be Caitlin Clark.
Look at how far Caitlin Clark is playing off of Raven Johnson. Caitlin Clark, left side. She doesn't.
This reads less like a spontaneous emotional confession and more like a calculated move to build a brand identity within a specific faction of the league's following before even suiting up professionally. The response online has been largely skeptical. Comment after comment pushes back on the credibility of the story. The idea that Clark supporters came after Johnson because Clark chose not to guard her simply does not hold together logically. Nobody cheers when their team's player gets left wide open and bricks shots repeatedly.
Doesn't even look at her, waves her hand as if to say, I don't care about you, I'm not defending you.
That's one reason I hate the internet now. Because of that situation, like I got bashed, I got bullied, I got called all these things that I wasn't, aka like a monkey or this, I don't know, like it was just things like that. And I just think, I wanted to quit basketball at that time. And I wanted to just go in this little bubble of isolation and just be by myself. And I think, I leaned on God. I had some wonderful teammates, wonderful people in my life.
The notion that Clark fans were the ones flooding Johnson's mentions with slurs over a moment where Clark was essentially dismissing her as a non-threat does not follow any rational line of thinking. The broader pattern here is exhausting. This is the same cycle that played out repeatedly across 2024 and into 2025. A player adjacent to Clark uses the connection to generate visibility, leans into the racial angle, and watches the engagement pour in from a built-in audience hungry to validate the grievance. It works every single time because the formula is reliable. The reaction is predictable.
And I think, I leaned on God. I had some wonderful teammates, wonderful people in my life, like I said, and they helped me find that light, and it put so much fuel to the fire for me to go back the next year, and we went undefeated and met that team again, and we beat them. So I think it was all God's will.
Guys, come on. Now, I'm trying to figure out, why would you get called a monkey because Caitlin Clark waved you off? You didn't wave her off. I'm trying to figure out what kind of backlash.
The platform grows. Meanwhile, the actual basketball, the 1 of 11 shooting, the 0 of 4 from 3, the being left completely uncovered because the defense did not respect, the shot gets buried under the noise. Thick skin is a baseline requirement for professional athletics. Getting waved off because of poor shooting percentages is a scouting decision, not a racial statement. Wanting to quit over online backlash that came in far greater likelihood from the losing team's own fanbase rather than from Clark supporters suggests a fragility that professional sports will not accommodate gently.
Backlash you got. Why would you get any backlash? I would love to go back in time and take a look at social media when Caitlin Clark waved you off and to see how many South Carolina fans got their panties in a bunch. And guys, in case you're wondering, how did Raven Johnson do in that game? How did she do in that game? Number one, South Carolina won. Caitlin Clark dropped 30.
The court has its own way of responding to narratives. The scoreboard does not care about podcast appearances. None of this makes sense as a genuine Caitlin Clark fan story. It makes complete sense as an attention play heading into a draft where name recognition matters. Whether that recognition translates into an actual roster spot remains the only part of this worth watching.